I've been in practice now, hard to believe, but just celebrated 20 years in practice. I started at I was working on the Whitewater investigation actually for Ken Starr as a law clerk. And at the time, I was surrounded by just brilliance in that office, and just about everyone with whom I worked, or for whom I worked, I should say, went on to either take everything from White House counsel positions to members of the federal judiciary, or to heads of departments of major agencies. But I was told as a result of that there really wasn't any upward mobility within that office for the law clerk. And so they said, basically, you got a job as long as you want, but there really isn't, you're not going to become one of our prosecutors and the like. So I understood, got into a very small firm where there was a gentleman who ran a bankruptcy litigation practice, and he wasn't a litigator, and he really didn't want to be an attorney, he confided. He got a joint degree in the law and marketing because he loved marketing, and he found that he could build a legal practice and using his marketing skills, and he was fantastic at it. One of my very first months on the job, we as a very small office, I think there were 3 attorneys at the time, filed 100 consumer bankruptcies in 1 month. And so it was a high volume practice, and what that did, he didn't want to go to court, and so he hired me to be the litigator for the firm. So here I am, just having left a law clerk position, first year really in practice, and I was in court 4 or 5 days a week. If there was a court hearing in our local bankruptcy court here in the Eastern District of Virginia, I was there. And that just was mind-blowing for a young associate like that. And I very quickly moved on from there to a small firm. I call it like two partners and an associate. I was the associate. And it was actually a connection made at that firm that later, after that firm split up, and I ended up finding myself, spent about 13 years at an Arlington firm called Vriginia, had become a non-equity partner, shareholder there. I'd been there, like I said, for as many as 13 years. But I'd always kept in touch with John Raftery, who was one of the 2 partners that I worked for way back when. And it turns out he had just taken his whole firm in Bethesda, or most of it, and become the new Bethesda outpost, if you will, for this incredibly fast-growing firm that I'd never heard of, called Offit Kurman. And at the time, they were, I was just starting to think about maybe making a move, but I really didn't look too hard or long to realize that it was an opportunity that I was ready to take. They didn't have a Virginia office, but every one of the management committee to a person I looked at, in the eye to eye and said, "This is a big step for me. You promise your next move is into Virginia," and true to their promise, I was then there to open up the Virginia office, and I joined only about 7 years ago, and we are now celebrating. At the time, I worked out of Bethesda office for a while, but we're now celebrating 5 years, I guess, together, when the first additional lawyer, my partner Allison Knoll, and an associate of hers, Christy Niprosh, the 3 of us came together to form, at that time, the Virginia office of Offit Kurman.